October 1st, 1993, 9:20 in the morning. An armored truck is parked behind a Las Vegas casino, loaded with over $3 million. Two guards step inside to service the machines. The driver stays behind. Standard procedure, nothing unusual. Except, when those guards come back out, the truck is gone. No alarms, no struggle, and no witnesses. Just $3 million vanished in broad daylight. And the person behind the wheel? A 21-year-old woman with no criminal record, without any history, and with no reason to do any of this. She drives straight to a warehouse, hands the money over, disappears without a trace, and is never seen again for 12 years. But here's where it gets disturbing, because this wasn't her plan. This was orchestrated by a man nearly 30 years older than her, a man who had already killed once, a man who convinced the world he had changed, wrote poetry from prison, and somehow talked his way back into freedom. And what he did next was far more calculated than anything that came before. He didn't just plan a robbery, he built a person to carry it out. And by the time she realized what was happening, it was already too late. But before any of this, before the warehouse and the wheelchair and the private jet to Denver, before the FBI manhunt and the fake passports and the 12 years of hiding, there was a Woolworth store on Market Street in San Francisco. February 21st, 1969. Three men waiting outside in the winter sun. One of them, Roberto Ignacio Solis, 24 years old, born in Nicaragua, came to San Francisco at 2, grew up in the Haight-Ashbury reading poetry at coffee shop open mics before the robberies started. A Loomis armored truck pulled up that morning. The guard who stepped out was Louis Dake, 61 years old, father of 6 children, carrying a money bag. Solis and his accomplices closed in. "Give us the money." Dake looked at them, turned the bag inside out. Empty. The pickup was dry. Nothing there. 2 bullets in the back, anyway. Louis Dake bled out on the sidewalk while shoppers scattered and sirens wailed in the distance. 6 children lost their father that day. The money bag was empty. Roberto Solis killed a man for absolutely nothing. And within days, the police had him in handcuffs. Trial was short. Life sentence at Folsom Prison. He escaped once, made it 2 blocks before they dragged him back. Escaped again in 1972. Same result. After that, he stopped running and picked up a pen instead. The name on the poetry books was Pancho Aguila. First collection published in 1976. Then another. Then another. 5 in total. Raw verse, urgent, alive with something critics called redemption. Other writers took notice. Publishers took notice. Here was a man who had transformed himself behind bars, a killer who had found his voice in the darkness. The back covers mentioned Nicaragua, the coffee shop scene, the Haight-Ashbury days. Not a word about Louis Dake. Not a word about the empty money bag, or the 2 bullets, or the 6 children who grew up without a father. Letters started arriving at the California Parole Board in the 1980s. Prominent poets, respected publishers, literary figures with influence, all of them saying the same thing. Roberto Solis is a changed man. His poetry proves it. Give him another chance. And in September 1991, 23 years after killing Louis Dake, Solis walked out of Folsom Prison a free man. Less than a quarter of his life sentence served. The poets had opened the gates. 48 years old now, back in San Francisco. Nightclubs every weekend, warm eyes scanning the crowd, looking for something, someone. Early 1993, a nightclub somewhere in the city, smoke hanging in the air, music pounding through the walls. A girl named Heather Tallchief sits alone at the bar, nursing a drink she cannot afford. 21 years old, Seneca Nation, grew up in Buffalo with an absent mother and a father who drank too much and a stepmother whose fists left bruises. At 17, a bus across the country to find her birth mother, and finding her, also an addict, also broken, but staying anyway because there was nowhere else to go. GED came eventually, then a nursing certificate. 4 years working AIDS hospices in San Francisco during the worst of the epidemic, holding the hands of dying men, watching them waste away, saying goodbye over and over until the goodbyes stopped meaning anything. Then came the cocaine to numb it. Then came the job loss. Then came rock bottom. Broke, high, alone, sitting in this nightclub with nothing ahead and nothing behind. And then a man approached. 48 years old, almost 30 years her senior. Calm voice and warm eyes and a question that sounded like a door opening. Would she like him to read her tarot? His name was Roberto. The first visit to his apartment revealed the altar. It dominated the living room. Candles and incense and crystals arranged around a goat skull with the horns still attached. 2 chalices sat at the center, one filled with something red and one with something white. "Do you believe in the devil?" he asked, and before she could answer, he was offering cocaine, cutting lines on a mirror, talking about something called sex magic. Using the body to manifest desires, he explained. Ritual and release. Energy and intention. Their meeting was predestined, he told her. They were on a spiritual journey together. Something special. Nobody had ever called her special before. A few weeks into whatever this was, relationship, obsession, manipulation disguised as love, the confession came. Prison, he said. A robbery that went wrong. A guard who died. His voice was soft when he talked about it, regretful, the voice of a man who had made a terrible mistake and spent 2 decades paying for it. The poetry came after, he said. The transformation. A different man emerged from those years in Folsom. And she believed every word. Of course she did. She was 21 and lost and high and desperate to be seen. And here was this older man with his altar and his tarot and his promises of something bigger than the life she had been living. The red flags were everywhere, but she couldn't see them. Or maybe she didn't want to. Summer 1993 brought the suggestion of Las Vegas. A feeling about the place, Roberto said. Something about beating all the odds. No questions asked. Bags packed. An apartment near the Strip. Then job applications appeared on the kitchen table. Security companies, armored car services. Fill these out, he said. And she did. And Loomis Armored hired her in August. The firearms test was mandatory and she scored higher than anyone in her training class. Record marks that stunned the instructors and impressed her coworkers. What none of them knew, months of training in the apartment beforehand. Roberto teaching her how to shoot, an AK-47 hidden in the closet. What none of them knew, all of it had been building towards something. Her assignment was driving the armored truck. Casino runs, ATM refills, millions of dollars riding in the back while her partners went inside to service the machines. Across town, Roberto rented a warehouse and painted a sign on the door, Armored Car Servicing. At night, VHS tapes played in the apartment. Strange tapes, swirling colors, spirals, and patterns that made her drowsy, agreeable, disconnected from herself. He drew a map and made her memorize it. Over and over. Left turn, right turn, straight for 2 blocks, until the route felt automatic, until her own voice sounded like it was coming from somewhere else. Then came October 1st, 1993. Eyes opening to swirling colors on the screen. Roberto standing over her with the map, his voice tight, his hands trembling. Today. The word hung in the air like a verdict. Uniform on, drive to work, truck waiting in the lot with $3.1 million inside for the weekend rush. Her partners that morning were Scott Stewart and Steve Marshall. First stop was Circus, parked behind the casino. Steve and Scott jump out for the ATM refill. 20 minutes inside while the driver waits with the truck. Standard procedure. Except on this particular Friday morning at 9:20 a.m., Heather Tallchief put the truck in drive and pulled out of the Circus parking lot without looking back. The map unspooled in her head. Left turn, right turn, straight for 2 blocks. Vegas sun blinding through the windshield. $3 million riding heavy in the darkness behind her. There, the sign. Armored car servicing. Warehouse door opening. Truck rolling in. Door closing behind her. Light disappearing. Roberto was waiting in the shadows, and he looked different now. Eyes hungry, desperate, vibrating with something ugly. "Get out," he said, and she did. He took her gun first, snatched it from her hand, then started barking orders. "Hurry the fuck up. Get the money out." His voice cracking, his hands shaking. This was not the poet. This was not the man who read her tarot and talked about spiritual journeys. This was the man who shot Louis Dake twice in the back for an empty money bag. Duffel bags filled with cash, hundreds, 20s, stack after stack after stack. The weight was staggering. 60, 80, over 100 pounds of currency. Taking longer than planned, Roberto checking the door every few seconds, checking his watch, sweat on his forehead. Then, the truck abandoned, bags loaded into a car, airport. Gray wig and makeup smeared into wrinkles in a wheelchair. An old woman being pushed through the terminal by her doctor, boarding a chartered plane, taking off into the desert sky, while Scott and Steve walked out of Circus to find an empty parking space where the truck used to be. By the time the FBI took over the case, Heather and Roberto were already in Denver. Fingerprints found in her apartment matched Roberto Ignacio Solis, convicted murderer, paroled poet, the man who killed Louis Dake in 1969. A goodbye letter surfaced, written to her mother. "Don't worry," it said. "We have never been true friends." The warehouse turned up empty, the armored truck inside stripped and useless. Forged passports appeared in a Miami hotel room with unfamiliar names and entry stamps for Suriname. Decoys probably, or plans that changed. A limo driver in Denver remembered a man pushing an old woman in a wheelchair. Strange, because the woman stood up and walked away. After that, the trail went cold. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Heather Tallchief and Roberto Solis had vanished with $3 million, and nobody knew where they had gone. Amsterdam, 1994. 6 months on the run. New names, new passports, money hidden somewhere only Roberto knew. And Heather was pregnant. The baby came in June, a boy she named Emilio. And looking at his face, something broke inside her. This was not the spiritual journey Roberto had promised. This was hiding, fear, watching every door. This was asking permission to buy diapers because he controlled every dollar of the $3 million they had stolen together. Worse, Roberto had changed. Or maybe he had finally revealed what was always there. Disappearing for days without explanation, bringing other women home to the apartment they shared, showing no interest in the baby, no warmth, no love. The poet was gone. What remained was cold, indifferent, hollow, the same emptiness that had looked at Louis Dake bleeding on a sidewalk and felt nothing at all. 2 months after Emilio was born, she waited until Roberto was out, moving through the apartment, opening drawers, checking hiding spots. $18,000 within reach, some jewelry, the rest locked away, controlled, his. Bag packed, baby in her arms, standing by the door when he walked in. "I'm leaving, taking Emilio." A look at her, a look at the bag, a look at the baby. His face did not change. No argument, no threat, no offer of more money. The man who wrote poetry in prison, who killed a guard for nothing, who hypnotized her with VHS tapes and sex magic and promises of something special. He just shrugged. "Okay," he said. That single word would hurt more than anything else that came before or after. The complete indifference. He never cared. Maybe he never had. Out the door with the 2-month-old and $18,000. Out of $3 million. Less than 1%. Behind her, the man she had loved, the money she had stolen, the life she had destroyed for him. Roberto Solis watched her go, and then he disappeared. Nobody ever saw him again. A fake British passport materialized through contacts she would never name. Donna Marie Eaton, Manchester. The baby became Dylan Eaton. New accent to practice, new walk to learn, hair cut short, a different person entirely. Amsterdam remained home. Hotel maid work, cash only, no paperwork, no photographs. Never the real name, never a call to family. Close friends became impossible because every question was a trap. Where are you from? What did you do before? Where's Dylan's father? Wrong answer, and everything ends. Lonely, yes, but alive. Back in America, her face was everywhere. Unsolved mysteries ran her story. America's Most Wanted broadcast her photograph into millions of living rooms. The FBI put her on the 10 Most Wanted list. Number 3, highest-ranking woman since 1950. Agents chased leads across continents, finding nothing. Her father sat in Buffalo watching every episode, certain his daughter was dead. Shark bait, that was what the cops told him. Roberto killed her, dumped the body, took everything. Fred Tallchief spent 12 years mourning a daughter who was scrubbing hotel toilets in Amsterdam, walking Dylan to school under a borrowed name, checking the locks 3 times every night before she could sleep. 12 years of this, 4,380 days, and every single one of them afraid. By 2005, Dylan was 10 years old and asking questions. Why does his passport say Dylan Eaton? Why no father on the birth certificate? Why does his mother flinch at every knock at the door? Worse, the passports were expiring. Renewal meant scrutiny. Scrutiny meant discovery. And discovery meant the end of everything. Looking at her son, the math became clear. No college with a forged passport. No real job. No future. Trapped because of what had happened when she was 21. Hypnotized. In love with a murderer who had abandoned her with a baby and $18,000. September 15, 2005. Amsterdam to Los Angeles. Fake passport used one last time. Coach seat, no sleep. The Atlantic passing below while she thought about the girl who woke up to swirling colors, who memorized a map, who drove $3 million into a warehouse and then flew away disguised as an old woman. That girl was gone now. 12 years of running had burned her away. Bus to Las Vegas. The city bigger now, shinier, towers that did not exist when she left. Circus still standing, but she wouldn't go near it. Hotel room, gray blazer, pink blouse, pale olive slacks. Mirror, 33 years old. Half a lifetime ago, a nursing assistant, holding dying men's hands in San Francisco. Now, about to walk into a federal building and surrender. The courthouse lobby was cold. Marble floors, fluorescent lights, security desk. I am Heather Tallchief, she said. I'm here to turn myself in. Blank stares from the guards. Then, a computer check. Recognition spreading across a face. Phone calls, agents rushing down hallways. The FBI had written her off years ago, assumed Roberto had killed her, took the money, vanished forever. Walking through that door was the last thing anyone expected. Running gets exhausting, she told them. Living in a mental prison, what is a cell compared to that? A box, a room, restricted privileges, nothing compared to 12 years of looking over your shoulder. I'm setting myself free. The charges stacked up: embezzlement, bank fraud, bank robbery, false statements, interstate flight, firearm in a violent crime, fraudulent passport. Maximum exposure 40 years. Her lawyers brought a psychiatrist who testified about brainwashing, the sex magic, the VHS tapes, the hypnosis. The prosecution countered with their own expert. Greed and love, they argued. Choices, not compulsion. March 30th, 2006. 63 months. 5 years and change. Restitution ordered, $2.9 million. The money didn't exist anymore. Roberto had taken it all. Time served. Release in 2010. 5 more years of federal supervision. By 2015, finally free. Back to healthcare work. The same profession as before Roberto. Before the altar and the tarot and the swirling colors on the screen. Dylan graduated college in 2019. They remain close. Roberto Ignacio Solis has not been seen since 1995. The FBI still lists him as a fugitive, armed and dangerous. Late 70s if alive. $3 million never recovered. Not a single bill. In 2021, someone asked her about him one last time. Probably dead, she said. No way is he still out there. No way. But if he is, good on you, mate. You did it. Then, a pause. If you find him, please don't tell him where I am. Somewhere out there, maybe, a poet who killed a man for an empty money bag, who wrote his way out of a life sentence, who found a broken 21-year-old in a nightclub and hypnotized her into stealing $3 million, who took the money, abandoned the baby, shrugged when she said she was leaving, and walked off into a world that has not seen him since. She served 5 years in federal prison. He never served a day.